Hey, how's it going, buddy? All right, Ben Affleck refutes Batman exit rumors. So thrilled to do it. So the rumor going around was that Affleck was leaving Batman after the debacle with DC. You know that Justice League. I don't think it looks very good. There's a lot of rumors that behind the scenes there's been trouble. They had to bring Joss Whedon in later to do. He was doing some rewrites because they were reshooting some stuff. Um, and and basically, Batman v Superman didn't do as well financially as they thought it was going to do. They thought the film was going to make $1 billion to $1.5 billion. It made 870 million. And then Affleck was going to write and direct the Batman movie, and he got big funding for that film he made. God, I can't remember what it was called. Something at Night, Live by Night. Yeah, that's the name of that damn movie. Had to remember, but if you don't know, Affleck's actually had nothing but success as a director with Gone Baby Gone and Argo and all that. But this movie bombed really bad. You see, it had a budget of 65 million and it made 22 million worldwide. So he had this happen, and they kind of the story's been that he didn't get to focus on this movie a lot because he was split up between making this and doing Batman stuff, and he had to step down from directing Batman. And now Matt Reeves of Planet of the Apes, the last two Planet of the Apes movies, Cloverfield, he's coming in to direct the movie and rewrite the script, and he threw Affleck's script out. So the story going around was that Affleck was very unhappy with what was going on, and he thought it was just kind of turning into a disaster and was kind of tarnishing the good reputation that he had been building up as a good director and kind of making himself a leading man again, an Academy Award-winning filmmaker. But now he's saying that, no, that's not true. I'm going to stay playing Batman. And if a lot of people don't know this, Affleck actually loved playing he actually loves Batman. If you listen to podcasts with Kevin Smith, the big thing about Affleck is that he actually had like a Batcave set up in his house with the poles and stuff, and he was a big comic book geek, and a big reason he played Matt Murdock, and I think they were filming Jersey Girl when that was going on. But a big reason he played Matt Murdock was he thought he would never get to play Batman. So Affleck in a lot of ways is a good choice because he actually knows the source material and knows the character, and he wants to do it justice. But it's like he's got all these shitty producers and filmmakers around him. He has Zack Snyder behind the lens, who he says is terrific at framing and coming up with shots, but Zack Snyder can't tell a story to save his life. But the rumors had some credence only in the fact that you could see where Ben Affleck was coming from and being like, well, does he want to stay on a sinking ship? But then Wonder Woman came out and got rave reviews, and it's a huge hit now. I mean, it's going to make 800 million worldwide. It just passed Guardians of the Galaxy 2 at the box office. So I think now there's momentum going for DC. So Affleck, it might have been more like a cash thing, like how Daniel Craig was going to leave James Bond, but now he's staying. It might have been Affleck wanted a little bit more money. But he's an executive producer on Justice League, so he actually has he can call shots. He actually has as high of a rank as Zack Snyder does on this movie. So that's interesting, too. Okay, let's go down. Ben Affleck today shot down a rumor that he will leave his role as Bruce Wayne Batman when Matt Reeves directs the new oh my, the new solo iteration of the signature DC superhero, said Affleck. Batman is the coolest fucking part in any universe. That's true. I am so thrilled to do it. It's fucking amazing. Wow, what an articulate way to put it, Ben. Maybe him and Schneider are similar. Maybe I'm off. After 2 films, Kevin Tsuchihara, Sue Kroll, and Toby Emmerich have said, "We want you to be our Batman." I would be an ape on the ground for Matt Reeves. It's a great time in the DC universe, and you can see why I'm so excited to play Batman. He should have put a fuck yeah at the end of that. Affleck was responding to speculative reports that reasoned after he pulled out of directing the next films, Reeves would seek to start over with a new actor. While the logic seems like plausible speculation, I don't think that decision has been made. He made his not-so-definitive declaration during the Warner Bros. DC representation of Justice League in Hall H at Comic-Con. Affleck's castmates were supportive and cheered his declaration. The real story will unfold over time as Reeves plunges into the Bat film after opening. Let's look at some of the comments. No, I love. Does he have to use the F-bomb? Yeah, it is funny how he just threw it in there. You know, there are people I would have preferred. Josh Brolin was actually up for this role. He was one of the guys on the list, and I think Josh Brolin would have been a fucking amazing Batman. Holy shit. I think about John Hamm, especially after seeing John Hamm in Baby Driver, and he actually kind of plays a more of a tough bad guy in the second half of that movie, and it's like, oh, John Hamm could be Batman. I mean, he looks like Bruce Wayne to me. He looks like Danny O'Neill. He's a much, much better actor than Ben Affleck, by far. He's a very terrific actor if you watch Mad Men. And, I don't know. I mean, he's not super tall, but I could definitely... He looks taller than he is, and I could totally see him kill playing Batman. Like, oh my god. Imagine his jawline in the cowl. So Affleck isn't leaving, or so they say. But that doesn't mean it is. I'm also going to look at this poster real quick. This is actually an awesome poster that came out for this movie. Boom, 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 boom. I know I'm on Ain't It Cool News. This place is ancient, but I knew this poster was here. Check it out. This is like the poster for the movie they put there, and it's inspired by Alex Ross. And I gotta say, this is the best poster DC's ever released since they've started their cinematic universe. It has color. Look at this. There's color to this. They actually said, hey, let's not just put a bunch of Photoshop heads. Let's actually have a concept here. So they kind of did yeah, right here, see? See Alex Ross style, that mythical godlike way of doing it, and the pop of colors. He's one of the best comic book artists out there. I went to a gallery of his stuff one time, but see, look how they make Batman really blue here. And then they have the frickin' gold and green there, and the red, and then the fonts have each one of their symbols. That's a pretty sweet poster. I gotta give DC credit for that. Most of the time, posters from Marvel, DC, superhero film... Posters in general today suck. They're just, like, really bad Photoshop, but this actually has a concept. It's really cool, and it says way more than any poster could say. It's like, just put the fucking faces on there. We know who they are. We know that's Flash. We know that's Batman. So, you know, you don't have to cock tease me. I don't know what's happening, but Marvel is stomping all over DC right now. I mean, Marvel has several great movies like Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers, as well as television. Oh, yeah, for sure. Are you the guy with the beard with your brother who interviews people? No, bro. But, I don't know who that is. I don't know who you're talking about. I do have a beard, but I don't actually have a brother. So, and I would like to do Frank Miller on why superhero films are better than ever. I'm not sure if I agree with that one. So, okay, so, God, there's a lot to look at. I guess we'll look at Spielberg's Ready Player One. If you don't know what Ready Player One is, it's a book by Ernie Klein that was a bestseller a few years ago. I read it. I'm not as big of a fan of it as some other people. Basically, if you're a geek and you love 80s movies and 80s culture and pop culture in general, you're supposed to just suck the dick of this book. The guy who wrote it, lives in Austin, Texas. And he got a lot of fame for writing a sequel to Buckaroo Banzai, like a fan script. And I don't hate Ready Player One. It's just, to me, it's so much, it's Snow Crash. It's so much like Snow Crash with this virtual reality and perspective. And it plays with your interpretation of things. But also, it's just a bunch of really obvious pulp culture references. Like, Ready Player One doesn't have a bunch of deep cuts by Ernie Klein. If you have a basic knowledge of the 80s or just film, you're going to get all the references. There's nothing really that... And that part kind of sucks. But it doesn't mean it can't be a cool movie. It's a cool idea. Basically, it's in the future. Everything's kind of shitty, and people go into a virtual reality world. And the virtual reality world they go into, you can go to, like... You can fuck around with stuff that's like from old movies and stuff. It's probably closer to what the future is probably going to be like when we have VR, and basically you can drive the DeLorean from Back to the Future. You can fight Freddy Krueger. The Iron Giant's in it. There's also, there's characters all throughout the 80s, and there's going to be characters from Spielberg movies and movies that he produced. So he's really one of the only guys to make this because it's kind of a Roger Rabbit. But that, as I said, doesn't mean it can't be a cool movie, because the virtual world and a guy going in it could be a really cool movie. I am worried, though, it is just going to be like, Hey, look, here's all these geeky references that you love. Yay! Where like Stranger Things was so much more rich because it wasn't just nostalgia. It was a really good story and it was a big homage to things from the 80s like Stephen King books and horror films, but it wasn't like a ripoff. Where Ready Player One, I'm worried is going to be doing a lot of winking at the camera, but it I want to see the movie, but the people who love the book, they'll probably be really excited that the movie's getting made, and I'm sure it'll be a good adaptation because Ernie Klein's co-writing the screenplay, so that does make a difference. No, Renaissance Live is not my channel. Um, no, sorry. Daredevil and Luke Cage. Meanwhile, the last good thing DC has done is Smallville. Yeah, I love Daredevil. Daredevil's my favorite things Marvel's doing for sure. Oh, crap. Well, whatever. Okay. Let's see. Thor Ragnarok trailer. Let's find Ready Player One. There's gotta be... Gosh darn it. Ready Player One. I guess Ernie Klein was there with him. I never met Ernie Klein, but I know people who have met him and talked to him, and because I used to live in Texas, so it wasn't actually that difficult. Whoops. Alright. Oh, dead air. Dead air. Shoot it in the head. Okay, we're back. Ready Player One. Okay. Warner Brothers planted a big footprint in Hall H today, kicking it off with footage from Steven Spielberg's Ready Player One. It marked the director's second time here after the adventures of Tintin. Okay. I learned to become a storyteller from this guy. His films are woven in my DNA. This is Ernie Klein talking about Spielberg at Comic-Con today. Or maybe yesterday. Said the author, who mentioned the movie will be a huge breakthrough for showing the masses the power of virtual reality. Said Spielberg, when I read Ernie's book, it was amazing flash forward and flashback to the 80s that I used to work in. The creation of a virtual world took 2.5 years of preparation. And if you see right there, it's the Iron Giant, which I don't know how it's an 80s thing, because he's from the late 90s, but that's fine. I love the Iron Giant. He's a great character. About the source material's focus on the future, the filmmakers quipped, I read the book and said, they're going to need a younger director. In Ready Player One, the creator of an MMO called The Oasis dies, and he releases a video in which he challenges all Oasis users to find his Easter egg, which he will give the finder his fortune. Wade Watts, Ty Sheridan, that's Cyclops from X-Men Apocalypse, finds the first clue and starts a race for the egg. The movie opens on March 30 for Easter weekend. The clip is mind-blowing, showing a young protagonist who lives in a stacked trailer park in 2044 Columbus, Ohio, who puts on VR goggles and enters a futuristic world much like Minority Report, with homages to 80s elements like Freddy Krueger, the Back to the Future DeLorean, and Rush's iconic Tom Sawyer. It begins with dazzling purple VR ballroom with dancers in the sky, segueing to caped men riding a scorpion transformer-like creature, a big cameo, the Iron Giant. He's a major player in the story, said Spielberg, so I guess the Iron Giant's going to be a big part of the story. During today's panel, which included stars Sheridan, Olivia Cook, and Ben Mendelsohn, and co-screenwriter Zach Penn, co-star TJ Miller, got cheers talking about his Comic-Con getup. Steven Spielberg doesn't like to refer to his movies in a meta way, so I wore my Back to the Future shoes and E.T. red hoodie. Oh, you're so clever, TJ Miller. You clever, clever bastard. Not much, 1980. How you doing, man? Welcome to the live stream. Just watching some trailers, talking about some Comic-Con. Alright, let's kick this trailer's ass. Let's get into this bitch.
In 2045, there's nowhere left to go.
Okay, so, I have watched this trailer earlier, and one thing I do gotta say, it does have this Minority Report look to it, to the sets, and the way the cinematography and lighting is done is very Minority Report. Which was a clever approach by Spielberg, because Minority Report actually kind of the design of that movie with the self-driving cars and the way the eye scanner and the advertisements and a touch screen stuff. It's actually one of the most closer to the future films in recent time, and it actually had a great design and look to it. So it kind of does look like Minority Report, at least the stuff that's not inside of the Oasis. The stuff in the movie that's on the outside, like the trailer park he lives in and the VR stuff, it does look like AR and Minority Report, and I do like that era of Spielberg aesthetically, like the early 2000s to mid 2000s. And I'm happy to see that. I was worried it was going to look a lot more bland, or it was going to look like him trying to recapture what he did in the 80s, like he tried to do with Indiana Jones 4, and it was going to look too CGI with the backgrounds. And I do think the Oasis looks a little too CG, but I can forgive that because it's a virtual reality world. So it doesn't actually have to entirely look real. He does kind of have a loophole here. He has that, well, this is the Matrix basically, but this is a video game. It can look like a video game. It doesn't have to look completely realistic. So that can be, but the real world of it, the real sci-fi has to look good. So they might be able to get away with it, but I do think there's a lot of CGI in this trailer. Okay, we're starting, baby. I'm gonna have to pause so I don't get a copyright claim. I'm not gonna do just like a live reaction bullcrap. They get mad about that on YouTube. You know how it is. Village Roadshow, Jesus Christ.
But I wish I'd grown up in the 1980s. Like all my heroes.
See, I hate that. I wish I'd grown up in the 1980s. That's just the whole feeling. It's so for like those people that are stuck in another time in nostalgia and they think everything like that stuff does irk me.
I
But
live here in Columbus, Ohio.
but see, yeah, that's very hold on. That's very Minority Report. This slummy look in these trailers. I do like the look of this a lot. That's really cool.
In 2045, it's still ranked the fastest growing city on Earth. But it sure doesn't seem like it when you live in the stacks.
No, it's cool that he moves through cars and he lives through here and the way this is set up. I actually am more interested in seeing this side of it than I was in seeing the virtual reality part of this. I actually thought this stuff looked a lot cooler.
They called our generation the missing millions. Missing not because we went anywhere. There's nowhere left to go.
There's nowhere left to go. There's nothing to do. All there is to play video games in VR. Because everything's going to be shitty, I guess.
Where? Except the Oasis.
Population? Oh, we're going in.
It's the only place that feels like I mean anything.
I'm assuming this movie's going to be in 3D and stuff like that, because that would only make sense, but who knows. But yeah, he's in the Oasis now. After a point. I'm going to put some... Hold on here. Was in the animated film. But if you think of this in like a video game graphics way, that's probably what the Iron Giant would look like in a really, really good video game. If you were wearing a VR helmet and you looked at him, that's probably what he would look like. He would kind of look like the animated version of the character brought out in reality. See, that doesn't look like the Iron Giant if he was real metal CGI, looked like Transformers. That looks like him if he came right out of the movie and was there with you, like you want him to look. And I think that's what they're kind of going for with this, is they're trying to get it to look kind of like half animated, kind of fantastical fantasy where they can get away with these kinds of special effects. But the special effects are going to be different because the characters are going to look like, 3D graphic video game characters come to life in a sense. Let me see. Yeah. Okay. So let's keep going. I mean, because if that's supposed to be good CGI, I just gotta be honest, like, it's pretty bad CGI. Like, that doesn't look good, but I think what they're trying to do, it looks exactly right, but I could be wrong. But Spielberg's pretty clever. See, all this looks like Minority Report. That looks gorgeous. That's the fucking DeLorean from Back to the Future, but, like, this stuff looks amazing. That's beautiful lighting in front of me. Okay, so there's like a guy on a scorpion. I don't know if that's Batman or something. I can't tell. But you see what I'm talking about? That looks like CGI, right? That looks very CGI heavy and fake. But when a lot of movies have CGI like that and they piss you off, it's because they're trying to look realistic. The context I'm trying to say is they kind of have leeway here because that would be really, really good video game graphics. So if you watch this movie and think about this kid being like, if he looks real, but he's in a video game and the video game world is cutting back and forth between the real world and the video game world, it might be okay. Tom Sawyer shows up in this trailer. I'm kind of worried I'll get a copyright claim, but I don't know. Oh, that was Freddy Krueger, actually. If you look right here, check it out. Coming up. Yeah, see, that's Freddy Krueger right there. So Freddy's in it, and he looks... See, he doesn't... But once again, for video game, that looks pretty good. So, who knows? No, you are not 2 hours late, my friend. We're early on. We're getting just started. So that's pretty cool. Freddy Krueger's going to be in this. That actually could be a lot of fun. I don't know why they just don't have an actor dressed up as Freddy in that shot, but see, this does look very CG. I don't like a lot of this. This looks really fucking CG. Okay, I'm gonna mute here because Tom Sawyer plays here, and I don't want to get a copyright claim. But this is my favorite part of the trailer. A bunch of people are getting into like these racers or cop cars. I'm not even sure, but they're all in the VR suits getting ready, and this looks like Minority Report, right? And it's kind of got this Tron thing about it, and I really like this. The way that they're cutting back and forth. And that's some of the coolest editing I've seen Spielberg do in a while. To see like the people sit there and put the VR helmets on and sit in the chairs and see that matching up with what's going on in the Oasis. That's pretty neat cinematically, I'm not going to lie. And that kind of stuff, seeing Spielberg do that, I'm wondering if the animation stuff will work better in the movie because you'll keep cutting back to the real world while it's happening and seeing people interact with it. Kind of like what they did in the Assassin's Creed movie, but spend way more time in the Oasis. Because you want to stay in the Oasis, obviously. But see, like this, that looks so CGI. God. This looks so fucking fake. I mean, it's cool how many cars there are in the Mayhem, and this being like the Tron motorcycle. Or that might even be Kanada's motorcycle from Akira. But that's cool. It's kind of got this twisted metal thing about it here at the end, but I do like this shot. That's so CGI. Yeah, that looks more like the Tron bike actually. They should have yeah, there's the DeLorean again. See, the DeLorean looks really CGI. That bothers me. But he's like, "Oh fuck. My Oculus Rift's crazy." Ready Player One. That's either going to be a huge hit or just be a disaster. There's no middle ground for this movie. There's no way this is just going to come out and do okay. But I don't see how it won't make money with all these characters. And it'll be cool to see the Iron Giant, actually. Was not expecting that. Oh, John Hurt died. That sucks. I'm actually a big fan of him. Not just his Home Alone Sopranos work. I thought he was great in a lot of stuff throughout the years. He's been actually acting stuff since the 70s. He's in a Scorsese film, After Hours. Very good in that. Okay, so let's move on to the Marvel panel and find out what's going on there. They'll probably cut a lot of stuff for copyright reasons, but you do have to understand this is Steven Spielberg. And Steven Spielberg can get stuff in his movies. This is the guy that got Roger Rabbit made, where Looney Tunes and Disney characters interacted together in the movie. You have to understand, Steven Spielberg, he has enough pull in Hollywood that he can go and be like, hey, I want that character, and they'll give him that character. I mean, he has fucking Freddy Krueger in there, and he owns a lot of the shit in the book. Like, even if he doesn't own it, like, as a director, he owns part of that property. Like Back to the Future, he owns that property. So, he has a deal at Universal Studios. He gets 2% of all the concessions and every ticket sold there. Just imagine how much money that is at Universal Studios parks. All the tickets and all concessions, he gets like 2%. It's millions of dollars a year. That's so they can use his stuff. Because, you know, Spielberg stuff makes money, obviously. Marvel's Black Panther leaves a footprint in Hall H. Huh. Let's see. Captain Marvel Samuel Jackson confirmed as Nick Fury. Oh, that's cool. So he's going to be in Captain Marvel. It's confirmed now. Okay, that's cool. I miss Nick Fury. He's actually like my like top top 3, 4 favorite characters in the Marvel Cine Universe. Sorry, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the MCU. He's yeah, to me he's probably like he's kind of got the father figure thing he does is just so nice in the Marvel movies, and it gives levity. He helps keep things really grounded in a way that a lot of the other people don't. His presence, but that's probably just because he's Samuel fucking Jackson. You can't hold down a good Sam Jackson. Thor Ragnarok trailer stomps into Hall H with battling superheroes. I might skip out on this trailer just because I don't want to watch too many trailers here and get I don't want to get my stream shut down for copyright. I know it's fair use because I'm watching the trailers and reacting to them, but you'll still get a copyright claim even when you're obeying the rules because they're fucking assholes. So let's listen to some of this. The footage began showing Thor strapped into a chair arriving via a tunnel, a la Disney ride, to Sakaar, the fighting world of Jeff Goldblum's Grandmaster. This is the part in the first trailer where Grandmaster asks, "What have you brought me today?" Thor is dumped in a hallway where he meets a rock being with an Australian accent. Within a moment, he's fighting the Hulk in Grandmaster Stadium, but later on we see their friends with the Green Giant remembering who Thor was. Let's see. Both Mark Ruffalo, Hulk, and Tom Hiddleston, Loki, on the panel gave some insight into what the Ragnarok is about. At the end of the Dark World, Loki finds himself on the throne of Asgard. It's been 4 years since the end of the film, and when Thor returns, it's very different Asgard. Man, Thor 2 sucked. I remember I thought the trailers for the first Thor looked so bad. And for months I talked shit about that movie, even though Kenneth Branagh was doing it, and I like his work. And then I went to go see it, and besides the really shitty use of Dutch angles throughout that whole movie, and a Dutch angle is when you kind of tilt the camera a little bit, and that movie is filled with there's Dutch angles every fucking shot. I don't know what the artistic choice was with that. I feel like a Peter Jackson moving camera visual style would have been a lot better for Thor. But I ended up really liking Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston and thought it was a much better movie, and it was a good remake of Masters of the Universe. So then we got Thor 2, and I was excited because Alan Taylor was doing it, and Alan Taylor was a big director on Game of Thrones. He's actually coming back for this season. And the trailers looked good, and I thought they could improve, and they were going to spend more time in Asgard, and there'd be more action. And man, that movie is so dull and boring. I saw it with 2 friends. They both fell asleep during it. I stayed awake, but it was a rough time. And then we went back to somebody's apartment to hang out, and then 2 other people showed up that had seen the movie, and I asked them about it. We were all just talking about how boring it was, and I was like, yeah, very dull movie. It's visually rather engaging, but it has such contrived writing. It lacks any emotion. I remember the last 15-20 minutes is kind of cool when they start playing Portal, and Thor goes through these portals, and the movie feels really active and has energy. But for some reason, the first hour and a half of that movie is so dull. It has arguably the most boring bad guy in any Marvel film, which is quite impressive considering their track record with that. And I was really not excited for a third Thor movie, but they brought in the guy who's directed The Hunt for the Wilder People, I think was the name of that movie. And God, he directed another movie that I loved. Why We're in the Shadows, or We're in the Shadows, this vampire mockumentary. That's these vampires who've lived for a long time, and Jermaine Clemens is one of them. And What We Do in the Shadows, I think. Very funny movie. But he's a really good director. And then the trailer came out, and it looked awesome. So I have a lot of hope for Thor Ragnarok. I like the Hulk. I like Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk. I like Thor and the Hulk teaming up. I think that's a great idea. Hopefully that leads to an entertaining Thor movie that gets everything right. It has the fun elements of the first movie, the better camera work and framing of the second movie, because I hate the way the first movie looks. And maybe, it's definitely got this heavy metal magazine look to it, which I really like. And I do like Thor. I like Thor more in the Avengers films than I really like him in his own movies, though. I really like how they're using the Hulk as supporting character in the movie. Thor 2 was distractingly underwhelming. Yes, it was. It was very underwhelming. Um, yeah, I think they are. I think they are holding the giant robots. I don't know why it's saying my video output's low. What the fuck? I guess I got to be looking at more shit, boys. Okay. Wow, look at this new poster though. That's a pretty bitchin' poster. I like that. I like that a lot. Maybe this part could use a little work. The font's pretty cute, but maybe this part could use a little work. But this whole area, I think, is kind of awesome. That could actually be a comic book cover, and I'd be totally into it. That's pretty cool. Okay, Thor Ragnarok will be coming out in the first week of November. Sitting a November 3rd domestic release, it begins its international rollout October 25th. The third installment in the franchise is the first since 2013's Dark World, which made $644 million globally. The first sequel wielded an even bigger box office hammer than 2011's Thor. The first one made $450 million. It was a real surprise hit. A lot of people thought Thor was going to bomb. And then it ended up, Ruffalo. Hulk refuses to turn back into Banner, and he's enjoying his time on Sakaar as a gladiator champion. Oh, so the Hulk's just partying, kicking ass. That's pretty funny. Okay, I'm going to mute this and just look at some images here. See some stuff here. Yeah, there's Cate Blanchett, which she is looking better looking than she's ever looked in anything ever. I've always thought Cate Blanchett was an attractive woman, but she can look either like really plain, ugly, hot, sexy, but this whole like pale makeup, dark hair, eyeshadow thing, that's just like on point as fuck. Like, holy crap. I just like the look of this movie. They clearly took a Guardians of the Galaxy influence. And I'm not the biggest fan of Guardians of the Galaxy from the screenwriting standpoint, but direction, cinematography, special effects wise, it's actually one of the better looking Marvel films by far. And I think that was the right way to go with Thor, is to go into the more cosmic, fun. This looks, it looks a lot like, classic Marvel. And Black Panther has that look, and Doctor Strange had that look, and I think I'm definitely into what they're doing with the new movies visually, at least. There's a lot more color here. See, look, blue, red, green. I think they did change cameras on Marvel movies recently. I think they're filming with a new digital camera. I think they used to use Alexas, and now they're using Reds, but I could be wrong. Or they started using Reds, and they used to use Alexa, or they used to the reverse. I can't remember, but they did change cameras, because there used to always be the thing with Marvel with their color correction where all the movies look the same and they really lacked a color pop. But they don't seem to have that issue with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 and some of the recent films. This film has really good color. And see right there, that just looks good. It has a nice depth. I really liked how Ant-Man looked too, and I think they actually shot that movie on film. Which is kind of nuts that they would even spend the money to shoot on film with Ant-Man. But I could be wrong. But Ant-Man did look like it was shot on film. It didn't look digital. Okay, so let's get into Stranger Things, bitches. If you don't know Stranger Things, then you need to catch the fuck up, quite honestly. Stranger Things was by the Duffer Brothers, who originally took it to, like, HBO. They tried to get it on FX, AMC. And they were going to make it as a movie. But they realized they wouldn't be able to tell all the multiple narratives. They would have to pick one, either focus on the kids or on the teenagers or the adults. But on a TV show, they could focus on all three storylines and bring them together, which ended up being one of the better things about Stranger Things. But the Duffer Brothers, they were one of the guys that were on the short list to direct the It movie, the Stephen King adaptation, after Cary Fukunaga left. And how upsetting, because goddamn if they aren't perfect. Stranger Things is like Stand By Me meets John Carpenter horror movies. It's basically Halloween meets Stand By Me. And the second season coming out here is actually takes place during Halloween. They put Thriller in the trailer, which is amazing. It might be like the best trailer for a TV show I've ever seen. I mean, it really is. If you're like a fan, the first season to me was like an X-Files Twin Peaks moment. In fact, I even think the Upside Down kind of has a connection in the same sense of like the Red Room that David Lynch comes up with in Twin Peaks. There's this other dimension. I love that kind of shit. I geek out for that kind of stuff. But just the mystery of it, the kids' camaraderie, the cast, the chemistry, the humor, the guy who plays Steve. It was just so wonderful from a standpoint of filmmaking, the cinematography, the music. It was so much better than Super 8 and a lot of these other films that try to capture the 80s. It didn't feel like it was just ripping off things. It almost reinvented a lot of these cliches. And like Winona Ryder talking to the lights, it took things from Spielberg. That was very Close Encounters, Richard Dreyfuss. Clearly E.T., but it has so many of these elements, yet it doesn't feel like one of them. It's so many of these things at the same time, but it feels more like those those books you read in the 80s, those books from the 80s, or even a comic book. And X-Men's referenced throughout, and it's kind of got this X-Men thing about it. But for me, it's got so much of a mythology to get into and mysteries and theories, and I love shows like that. It's got likable characters. I want to spend time in this town of Hawkins. I want to stay there for a few seasons. Like, I think it could be like Twin Peaks or an X-Files, especially a Twin Peaks, where you get this developing mythology and this mystery, or Lost in its early seasons. Twilight Zone. Yeah, it's very Twilight Zone. And yeah, I just geek out for that. It's great sci-fi horror genre mixer. It was the biggest surprise to come out last year. It was like the best new show, and it definitely put Netflix. We thought the Marvel shows were going to be like the peak of Netflix really breaking out, and then they come out with Stranger Things, and it becomes their flagship show. I'd say it probably has the most hype out of anything they have coming, maybe even more so than The Defenders, which is crazy. But that's just because it was so great. It was 8 tight episodes that were well written, well thought out, and I thought it was very emotionally fulfilling and wonderfully acted. And God, it was just good traditional classic storytelling that we don't see enough in Hollywood. It wasn't trying to pander to you with the '80s thing. It actually just tried to tell its own story, and it ended up working on its own merits. Yeah, I agree. It does look more vibrant. Um, it's definitely a more vibrant movie. With Vincent Price voiceover from Michael Jackson's mega-selling Thriller pushing the narrative, the look of Season 2 made it clear the Upside Down isn't gone at all. Add to that, the now 1984 set series was peppered with period-specific video games, Reagan-Bush re-election lawn signs, and a promise from Sheriff Jim Hopper that nothing is going to go back to the way it was. Not really. God, I hate so much that he gave that shitty fucking speech at the award show. Because I love this show so much, and I loved Hopper. He was such a good character, and that guy who played him was amazing. And then I saw him give that awful punch speech, and I'm like, God damn, dude. Like, you just fucking... You almost ruined this show for me, because, like, I hate that you're this way, and you used the speech for this. And then Winona Ryder was just fucking high the whole time, like, making faces, which was amazing. I bet she is one crazy lay, that woman. She's probably, like, just, like, screwing, like, Margot Kidder or Sean Young. Just any of those women that went crazy. It's amazing. Adding to the surprises, the first question from the audience came from Emmy-nominated actor Shannon Purser, who played Barb on Season 1. Will Barb be in Season 2? She asked a big applause before joining the cast on stage. What did she get nominated for? Did she get nominated for this? Wait, so they nominated her for, like, her, like, one episode performance? What? That's weird. I actually think Stranger Things is probably going to win at the Emmys too, because Game of Thrones isn't nominated this year, and because it didn't come out in time, and Twin Peaks isn't eligible yet either, because it didn't have enough episodes out. Now next year, I think Twin Peaks episode 8, the crazy Eraserhead episode versus Game of Thrones, is going to be the Emmys. But from the nominations right now, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if something else won. But I'd say if you had to put money on it, Stranger Things is going to win Best Drama Series at the Emmys. It's going to win, I think, probably Best Director, Best Writing. I think it's going to win, like, it's going to be a big thing. I don't know why. It feels like people love it. It won at the Writers Guild, I believe, and Producers Guild. So I say get ready to see Stranger Things sweep the Emmys. Something else could win, though, but it seems like the momentum for this show is just way too huge. The industry seems to love it. Okay, let's see. If Steven Spielberg blew the wigs off the crowd on Hall H earlier today with the new 1980s theme Ready Player One, Stranger Things rocked them like a hurricane, to quote the Scorpions. For one thing, it's fairly safe to say that almost nobody thought when the first season of Stranger Things launched just over a year ago on Netflix that the sci-fi horror series, starring Winona Ryder and Harbour, would be packing Comic-Con's Hall H. But today, that's exactly what the Reagan era show did. No, it's become like it really hit the zeitgeist. I mean, you talk about catching on. I mean, it became a show where, like, you watched it the first few days, and then it was like a month later, everyone you fucking know watched Stranger Things. I haven't seen a show blow up like this since, like, Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones, like, where everyone just got on the fucking bandwagon right away. But hey, good TV stands out, man. And it's event TV with Stranger Things. Like, it felt like watching this really epic movie, and it always kind of ended on a really exciting moment. Like, you wanted to binge watch it, and it didn't have that awful pace with the 13 episodes that the other shows do on Netflix usually. Like, 8 episodes was just right. And this season's only 9 episodes, so luckily they're not dragging it out. And the Duffer Brothers said they had a 30-page outline for the Upside Down. So there's still a lot of stuff they have yet to explain, and there's so many questions we had left over from season 1. And you know, there is a novelty that could be taken away if if the show does suck. But I have so much faith in these guys, and the characters are so likable. Like, even if season 2 is not as good as season 1, right? If it's just good, it's not great. That's still good, but I have a feeling it's going to be even better. I'm very optimistic. Oh. Whoa, didn't know this was a live stream. What a surprise. That's amazing, dude. You were just watching it like it was a video? That's pretty funny. Today's clearly very personal tight panel includes EP Sean Levy, the Duffer Brothers, then a bunch of the cast members. During the panel, Harbour called Season 1 a classics hero journey for his Sheriff Jim Hopper character. But otherwise, besides a widely different arc in Season 2, the cast was fairly mum in what of the 1984-based cycle will actually be about. The co-creators had already teased the Season 2 would be a bigger season in some regards. It was obviously difficult. I had very few lines, said Emmy nominee Brown of Season 1 at playing 11. I had to everything with my face, which is very hard, but it gets easier when you feel more comfortable with your character. In the first 2 episodes, I immediately fell in love with 11. The only thing that was hard was crying. I feel like I'm a happy person in real life. I need 5 minutes to get in the zone. Yeah, the stuff with 11 really reminded me of Akira and, God, that film from Altered States. Yeah, Altered States and Akira definitely reminded me of the experiments on Tetsuo, and then I love the Upside Down, though. I'm, like, obsessed with it and the monster and stuff. Like, it was one of those shows, every time an episode was over, I'd spend 10 to 15 minutes after talking with my girlfriend about it, or my friends, whoever we were watching it with. And I would just, like, talk about, like, what does this mean? I think 11 created the Upside Down. You know, I had all these... I was actually pretty right on a lot of my theories while I was watching the show, oddly enough. But that might be because I read a lot of the books, or I've watched a lot of the movies that it's taking from, so I kind of know some of the story patterns. I certainly think the new It movie is going to take some notes from this, and it's funny because the kid in this actually is in the new It movie, the lead kid from Stranger Things. Debuting on July 15, 2016, with 8 episodes season 1. God, can you believe that we've had to wait since July now till fucking October for this season? That's fucking crazy. Like, Game of Thrones made us wait, but holy shit. That's nuts. I mean, it's felt like forever. Down on their luck, local sheriffs and single moms immediately struck a chord with critics and audience and became one of the most talked about Netflix shows ever. We'll never know precisely how many people watch, because the Reed Hastings run streamer still doesn't release that info. But I hear Stranger Things pulled in very strong viewership episode after episode. It's a clear no Upside Down and no-brainer move. Netflix picked up a second season. I've heard that it's done, like, it's right up there with Fuller House. It's, like, in the top 3 most watched things on Netflix. But that means we don't, like, here's the thing. You gotta think about this. If Stranger Things was on television, like, if AMC would have picked this up, or Walking Dead's on or something, I don't doubt at all that this show would have been a show that would have started that would have been like a True Detective kind of started pulling in like 3 million viewers. How that for HBO. And then by the season finale, pulling in like 10 million viewers, which is what happened. Like, because the hype gets so big. Like, that's how True Detective was. It started out with like 2-3 million viewers. Then the 4th and 5th episode came out, and the show got so much hype, everyone was watching it. Same way Breaking Bad got bigger as it goes on. But Stranger Things, I feel like a Walking Dead, if AMC would have got it or something like that, or HBO even, I feel like if we could know the numbers, I think by like the season finale of the first season, the show would have had huge ratings. I mean, I think this would be like one of the more popular shows on TV right now. But we don't really know how popular it is because it's on Netflix and we don't get the full numbers. But just from my experience to talking to people, Stranger Things seems like something everyone's watching. In the same way that a lot of people thought Game of Thrones wasn't the biggest show on TV, but now it's coming out more and more that everyone kind of watches Game of Thrones. They either download it, or they watch it on DVD, or they watch it at a friend's house, or something like that. So, um, in this new era where streaming's kind of what HBO does, with subscriptions, you never know how many people are actually watching because you're only getting a bit of the numbers. You don't know the whole thing. And then that's not counting the merchandise they sell. Think about how much stuff they sold, like Stranger Things t-shirts and all that. Earlier this month, Stranger Things received 18 Emmy nominations, including Best Drama and Supporting Actor and Actress nod for David Harbour and almost newcomer teen Millie Bobby Brown, as well as unexpected nod for Purser. Yeah, I think that's 11. And she could win this. She could actually win the Emmy. And the guy who plays Sheriff Hopper could actually win the Emmy, too. I actually think they're going to do very well. Them and, God, I can't remember. There was another show that got a bunch of nominations. Westworld. Westworld's probably going to do really well, too. Netflix and its rookie sensation Stranger Things are flying high off and Emmy nomination day that saw the series score 18 noms. The success also landed it a Hall H berth at Comic-Con this year, where it kicked off its presentation with the teaser for the long-awaited Season 2. Something's coming, said teaser as it took over Hall H with Dungeons & Dragons references, Winona Ryder voiceovers, 11 mind-bending a can of Coke, and claims of monster hunting. There was also more of the Upside Down, and we saw Will Noah Schnapp, throwing up a bug-like life form as he did at the end of last season. The packed hall went crazy with cheers. It was all announced that the fans would see more exclusive footage from Season 2 later in the panel. So the Stranger Things Season 2 trailer is just fucking amazing. They play the Thriller theme throughout it. The visuals look incredible. You could tell they actually didn't get a big budget on the first one, and they actually had to limit a lot of the stuff they did, which is crazy. The show looked great. But after it became a huge hit, you have to assume Netflix went to them and said, okay, here's like twice or 3 times the budget of the first season. But it just looks more expensive. It looks like there's more money in the special effects, the cinematography, all that stuff. Although it was always gorgeous. Here you're seeing Will getting experimented on. There's this new doctor there. And he's being played by Paul Reiser. And Paul Reiser played Burke in Aliens from 1986. And if you remember, Burke seemed like a friend of Ripley and then ended up fucking her over. So I think it's very telling that Paul Reiser's going to be in this season and play a very similar character to the role he played in Aliens. And we've already got some alien homages in the first show with the eggs and stuff like that. And I think we're going to get more alien stuff. Just to break this down, that's definitely the shot from Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where the little boy's looking out the window and sees the aliens. No doubt about it. This scene with him running down the hallway, though. So Will's running down the hallway and the Upside Down is like chasing him. So that after the slug came out of his mouth from the first season, a lot of us thought that there was still something going on with him from the Upside Down and that he still had a part of. Clearly, that's true with the second season. So in my mind, Will's somehow connected to the evil entity that's coming. This almost Cthulhu-esque creature that seems to be approaching the Tessel Hydra, probably. And it looks like Will's a key to these two worlds, and almost like what I think they should have done with the Nightmare on Elm Street films, done like a TV series where it's like this. But seeing him go through this hallway and it all changing around him is kind of Let me go back. This shot coming up here is really. Oh, there's Steve with the baseball bat doing. But that shot here, that shot is amazing. That is really fucking cool. That is a way more ambitious shot than like anything in the first season. And then we see 11 at the end, and she like sticks her hand through a portal. So 11's alive. She's in like the upside down. I'm not quite sure what's going on. I love that the season takes place on Halloween. That couldn't be more perfect. I love that they're wearing Ghostbusters uniforms. Although, what kid in the 80s could have a Ghostbusters uniform that nice? That wasn't con culture time. Um, it looks ambitious. It looks big and fast, and like there's going to be a lot going on and a lot of mystery. It looks like the kids are using the proton packs. They actually show the ghost catcher from Ghostbusters open up and they look inside it. So they actually use that to catch something. So that's really cool. Is they're actually like using their Ghostbusters equipment to be Ghostbusters. Which this might end up being a better Ghostbusters movie than the fucking Ghostbusters movie we got in 2016. This one's probably gonna have more, but the thriller choice it could have been cliche, but was just dead on. Reagan Bush sign, that's really cute. There they are in the Ghostbusters outfits. All this is really great. Seeing them at school again. They also have a new character this season, some girl with red hair, and she's gonna join the team. Probably to be a romantic interest to one of the new boys, but I'm pretty pumped for Stranger Things Season 2. I'll probably break down some of that stuff later as we get closer to the show. There's a lot of things at the trailer you can really break down here. Like, what is Harper digging with that shovel? How much is the Upside Down going to be involved? Why isn't Will with them in the Ghostbusters thing for some of it? Are Will and Eleven going to cross paths? Is that how Eleven's going to come back into the story? There's also, I feel like there's, maybe I'm reading into it, I also feel like there's kind of this subtext that's going to be with Season 2 with Will hitting puberty, with the upside down stuff and puberty chasing you, because that's a lot of the themes of horror films, and like, the knife is a dick stabbing and penetrating the virgin girl, the slasher knife in Halloween is a penis, and seeing the penetration, or like in Alien, the magazine getting stuffed in Ripley's mouth that's like a penis violating her, and then what happens to Ash? A bunch of white stuff comes out after that happens. I know, and the second Nightmare on Elm Street movie had a homosexuality subtext that was very obvious. I'm almost feeling like there's going to be some subtext here, like Will's in his room hiding, he's in the bathroom, he doesn't want anyone to know strange things are happening, stranger things. But you know how It kind of has a double play for It, meaning It, Pennywise the Clown, and also It as sex. Because in the original novel, all of the kids get together at one point and have sex to stay connected so they don't lose themselves in the sewers. And I always felt that that's kind of what It meant. Like the whole book was a metaphor for the fear of sex, or losing your virginity, or the fear of expectation, these feelings, and then the reality of it in a sense, which is the reality of adulthood, the reality of it. So I kind of have this wondering if the Duffer Brothers are going to be clever here and make it where Will's character is kind of changing and growing up with the Upside Down happening, maybe in a very subtle way, but I could be wrong. But that does fit the era that they're taking this from. But perhaps I'm reading way more into that than it should be. Hey, not much. Good to see you, straight Sith male. I saw season 1 of Stranger Things. It was okay. Hey, the prequels were great. The Force Awakens was garbage. Okay. I didn't know this was a Star Wars conversation. Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of Stranger Things. It's probably my favorite thing to come out, and it's my favorite new show in a long time, for sure. I'm not going to act like I'm not a fanboy. I'm a big fanboy. Let me get some water here. God, Justice League looked awful. Oh my god. I can't believe there's people who think this trailer looks good. Way too much CGI. Every fucking background in every shot looks fucking fake. The locations don't mix. Wonder Woman's location, I'm so scared Darkseid shows up and they show it and it looks like a big CGI bad guy with the voice. It looks like it's going to have the big CGI. You know all the DC films end with those crappy big CGI fights, even Wonder Woman or Doomsday and Batman v Superman or the end of Man of Steel? It just feels like Justice League, the whole movie's going to be those long crappy CGI fights. I hate how a set looks like a set in the movie. I just hate the look of the movie. I really like the look of Batman v Superman. I thought it looked a lot like Watchmen, and I thought that was the right choice. The cinematographer working on this is a guy who worked on Game of Thrones. He actually shot Hardhome and the Battle of the Bastards. He's one of the best cinematographers to work on Game of Thrones. So I don't know why I don't dislike like the lighting and framing of the movie so much, but it's like it looks like there's too much CG. Like they're fighting a bunch of CG monsters and Aquaman's falling down into a CGI building. And whenever they're not in CGI, it looks like they're standing on a set somewhere and they're not like in a real location. We're in a post Christopher Nolan era, like Marvel's also taking this too. You need to show us location. One of my biggest problems with Joss Whedon's first Avengers film was that it felt so small because, you know, he was a TV director, so he kept a lot of it dialogue, character driven. And whenever they were on the carrier, it felt like they were on a set when they're setting. Now it was very good dialogue and acting, but it just kind of looked like he was shooting close-ups of people on a set doing back and forth dialogue. Not really that exciting visually. He does some more stuff in the third act, but he got a lot better with the second movie visually. But that was kind of my issue. And my problem with this is, yeah, it feels that way. It feels like big budget television more than it does a superhero film that should be really visually engaging. Like, I want a Justice League movie to look like Alfonso Cuarón films, like Children of Men or some shit. Or you know, Peter Jackson at his peak. I don't want it to look like a fucking video game cutscene. It really pissed me off. But let's go to the Justice League panel. Maybe there'll be something. Of course they're doing Wonder Woman 2. Wonder Woman is the first one they've had that people fucking liked. Justice League trailer. Wonder Woman saves school children. Oh, and they're hinting at that Superman's still alive even though it's fucking obvious. Like we're supposed to be surprised when Superman shows up in the movie. Like, oh boy, I didn't see that coming. It's not like at the end of Batman v Superman after they said he was dead, they showed his casket and pretty much made it clear that he was going to come back. Because they couldn't leave him fucking dead. Because they don't do that in movies anymore or TV. When they kill people off, they bring them back. They don't have balls anymore. Oh, dude, totally. Yeah, this is a different trailer, though. I agree with you. That Come Together one was terrible. This is the new trailer. Yeah, no, the fight at the end of Wonder Woman is fucking awful. It really is. It feels like Zack Snyder stepped in and came because he co-wrote the screenplay and produced the movie. It feels like Patty Jenkins made a lot of the movie in the middle act, that stuff in World War I with Chris Pine, and then Zack Snyder jumped in and was like, all right, I want a big CGI fight at the end like Batman v Superman. And it's like, dude, please don't do that. We're so sick of that in comic book movies. Like, it's just a dead thing for most people. We much prefer the intimate, small, character-driven thing in the third act now. We are done with the big final CGI bad guy fight. And I cannot believe Wonder Woman fell into that trap again. This is how we roll, Gal Gadot told moderator Chris Hardwick. God, Chris Hardwick, Jesus Christ, how many dicks does that guy suck? He's like the fucking panel guy everywhere. He got in Walking Dead. They're doing Talking Thrones now. It's like, how does this guy... I mean, he must just be the blowjobs he must give. And the smile he gives you afterwards. I mean, I'm not hating on Chris Hardwick. The guy's been around like 20-something years and worked his ass off to get here. And he has a good podcast. But holy shit. How the fuck? Bastards everywhere. Huh. Sorry, I'm just reading some of your stuff in chat. So if I don't talk for a second, it's just because I'm reading what you're saying. In the trailer, a group of assassins enter a building full of school children. God, that's so dark that Schneider would even do that. Like, when I think of a Justice League movie, and I don't mind adult movies, and I don't mind darker themes. I love the Daredevil show on Marvel, but like, that's not what comes to my head in a Justice League movie. It's like guys going in with guns into a place with school children. Like, that's so fucking exaggerated and sensationalist. That feels so Zack Snyder, like, man, it'll be really intense. You know what people are scared of? Guns. Guns are a thing right now. And you know what? School shootings. So we need to have something with guns and kids in a school. And then Wonder Woman can show up and save the day. She can beat up these evil men with their gun. Like, it feels like he just thought that was cool without really thinking. Because there's that same kind of geopolitical bullshit in Batman v Superman where it's like, oh man, this can be about terrorism, but we're really not going to explore that idea. We're just going to talk about it for like 5 minutes here and there and then ignore it. And then we're going to have a big CGI battle. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah. Basically, Superman was 9/11, and then you drop that plot line like half hour in. Let's go with that bullshit. J.K. Simmons, Commissioner Gordon, flashes the bat signal to the sky. The trailer sets up that the world is mourning Superman's death. These are the age of heroes who will never come again. Another cool shot shows Aquaman dropping through a building, standing on top of a body, and walking out of the front door. See, I don't think that shot's cool at all. I think that shot's awful. It's Aquaman falling from the sky on top of a bad guy, and he crushes the building with him, and then he just walks off like nothing, like a bro. Like, whatever, man. Like, I do not know. Aquaman in this movie's a dude, bro. It's ridiculous. I mean, what the... He looks like a guy who listens to, like, Pantera and hangs out at the gym a lot and really, really, really likes to drink, like, fucking hard liquor and gives you shit if you get mixed drinks if you don't drink it straight. It's like, really? That's Aquaman? Don't engage this alone. We're all in this together. Wow, what great dialogue. At one point, superheroes are on top of a building with Gordon. How many of you are there? Asks Gordon. Not enough, says Batman, as they all disappear except for Miller's Flash, who is left befuddled. At the end of the trailer, Jeremy Irons' Alfred gets a visit from a mysterious friend. Could it be Superman? Ray Fisher Cyborg told everyone that with Joss Whedon's recent handling of reshoots shouldn't be taken as an indication that they're secretly filming Justice League 2. Why would anyone take that as an indication that they're secretly filming Justice League 2? You fucking moron. We don't think you're out there making like a sequel and you're filming some secret $250 million movie. Joss Whedon's working to prep Batgirl, and he's just handling the post on this because Zack Snyder's dealing with the fact that his daughter committed suicide. But it is interesting. I don't think Snyder's going to be on the next Justice League movie or on any of the future Superman or Batman films. I think it's very telling that Matt Reeves is in now on Batman. I think it's very telling that Patty Jenkins and Wonder Woman 2 is going through. And I wouldn't be shocked if Patty Jenkins ends up actually directing Justice League 2 because of the success of Wonder Woman. Although I'd still prefer George Miller. And I wouldn't be surprised if Zack Snyder takes more of a producer role. And I'm not saying that, you know, WB's happy that what happened, but you know, it's a lot easier that his daughter died and he left for those personal, which is obvious, you know, you go deal with that. But that's kind of an easy way for them to not have to fire him or let him go because he gets to leave for that reason. Then they can bring Joss Whedon in to try to fix a lot of the problems with this movie, which I'm sure it has because it's Zack fucking Snyder. He's a child. And not to harp on the guy, he had a tragic thing happen. I hate to make fun of the guy or talk shit about him, but you know, I have to. It's what it is. He makes these movies. But having said all that, that doesn't mean this couldn't be a fun, entertaining movie. I'm just not sold on it at all yet. I think it looks awful. It feels like Justice League is trying really hard to connect with younger audiences. It's working against them. I think so too. I think they're trying to get like little kids, and that's not the way to go about it. I think it would be a much better idea to go for something that has a more unique, grounded feel. This, like, look at this shot. Look at this fucking shot of CGI. None of this looks real. And this is that same fucking Man of Steel, Prometheus, Ridley Scott wannabe set aesthetic bullshit from so many movies. This part's kind of cool when Cyborg takes over like a, I guess like a bat machine. I don't know what exactly it is in this movie. And then he tells Alfred, like, I got it from here. Look at this. That looks so CGI. That whole thing there looks so fucking fake. Like I said here, this looks like a set. None of this looks real. I mean, even if that's a good background and they're on a real location, which they could be, it doesn't look right. The lighting, the way, and then he takes the fucking shot from Spielberg. He takes the frickin' things, the glass, the dinosaur. I can't believe he fucking did that. He took like, really? Any shot you can steal from Spielberg and you take one of the most famous fucking ones. But like I said, the stuff doesn't mix with me. Like, the way that the stuff here looks, right? The mascara stuff. and Aquaman stuff, it doesn't match up. The colors and stuff, they look like they're in totally different fucking movies to me. And then it looks like there's the separate movie here with the CGI, and then there's other parts of this movie where it looks like this looks so fucking fake to me. Like, think about the Quicksilver scene in Days of Future Past and how Bryan Singer shot that. Now look at how Snyder's shooting this. It looks like Ezra Miller's running in front of a fake fucking background with a bunch of CGI on top of him. Like, it lacks a visual dynamic. Like, this right here, that doesn't... That, to me, the background there looks like... That looks fake to me. That doesn't look real. That looks like they're standing on a set, and there's a CG background there. That doesn't look like in the Batman trilogy, where, like, Christian Bale's actually standing on a building, or they're actually standing somewhere out in a real place. That just doesn't look... They might even be really shooting this on location, but it even the way that Schneider fucking lights the damn thing, it looks fucking fake. I don't know how the fuck... I'm not really sure how that's possible. How you can make a movie look so fake. You know, Zack Snyder was so cool, man. Dawn of the Dead, when that movie came out, that was such a surprise because it was a remake and it wasn't shitty. And then I really liked 300. And, you know, I mean, it was cheesy and over the top, but it was like the most loyal adaptation of that comic book you could possibly hope for. If you didn't like that movie, you basically wouldn't like the comic. And I thought, okay, this guy's going to be like a Robert Rodriguez. You know, I thought he had made like his, you know, El Mariachi, and then he made like his Sin City. And I thought, okay, so he's going to be off and on. Then, goddamn, he pulled a real Robert Rodriguez and then just made a bunch of shit for 10 years. I used to be one of those people, too, that said, I was so dumb when I was young when I saw Watchmen and stuff. I was one of those people like, hey, Zack Snyder's not that bad. He's great with visuals, man. You know, he really gets the characters in the story. And it's like, he doesn't get this shit at all. It's like he read Watchmen and didn't understand any of the subtext and what it was really about. That it was a commentary on comic books. And then Ozymandias is basically Lex Luthor. And there's a Superman Batman thing. And it's like if Lex Luthor had a Silver Age plan that actually succeeded. And it just has all these comic book references, and it's a meta story about comic books. So the way to approach it in Snyder's film would be to do a meta story about superhero films, especially superhero films from the 80s, like Tim Burton's Batman, in the same way that they were looking at... They were basically destroying the myth of the hero and the superhero and it was what was so brilliant about Watchmen. It's so dense with themes, while being just a really compelling detective story, noir story with a great plot twist. The thing, though, about the movies, it has none of that commentary and stuff. It's so shallow. Like, Zack Snyder's like, look, 2 lesbians got killed here. Oh, look at my montage with the Bob Dylan song. And it's like, it's so in your face. And he kind of misses the point. He gets Rorschach right in, like, Dr. Manhattan, but he misses all the other things. He doesn't get, really, why the comedian's death is impactful. He doesn't get why Ozymandias' plan is so important. He doesn't get why... He just doesn't even get the squid thing, that's a Silver Age comics thing, and he doesn't even get the basis of, like I said, just the theme, the idea of that it's this, you know, it's this world with superheroes, and it's deconstructing superheroes as we know them, and you know, Rorschach's very much the question, in a lot of ways, and that's... And it sucks because Snyder it doesn't have any of that commentary or wit or layers to it. It's just it's kind of an entertaining movie because it has good special effects and production design and some action scenes. But Watchmen isn't an action story. It's not even really a mystery detective story. It's a story about storytelling. It's a story about the mythical idea of the hero and the villain. It's a story about the way we perceive those stories and why we write them and we need them. And how you tell a story. But the movie doesn't have even an ounce of that, and that just shows you the kind of director Schneider is. Visually very engaging, but he's like David Fincher without any of the, you know, the he has all the technical know-how, but he doesn't have any of the depth, basically. The same stuff you would see in like a Fight Club or a Seven or The Game or Social Network. Zack Snyder can't do that. He thinks in the way of like I did when I saw those movies as a teenager. But this is a guy who's in his 40s, and it's like he never got past that age of like, hey, let me do this thing because it looks cool. He never sits around and seems to think about why it's supposed to look cool and why it's supposed to work in the context of the story. There's a scene in Man of Steel that's amazing where Superman's going into these Kryptonian skulls, and the background's beautiful. It's like the red sun. But it seems like it's only in there to be a cool shot because it looks like a panel from a comic book. But you could tell that Schneider didn't really think about what the shot means, and he didn't think about why it's really there. He just thought it looked cool, and that's the kind of director he is. He doesn't think, he's like, oh, it'd be cool if Batman flipped this car over and smashed it on top of another car, but he doesn't think about Batman in that situation and that Batman wouldn't do that because he doesn't care about Batman. He cares about making something look cool. And I don't want that guy handling these characters that are the mythical figures. That's what DC is different from Marvel. Marvel's about making you relate to the characters in a human way. That's what Spider-Man does and stuff, and making you feel like, oh, this could be me. DC's all about making the characters these almost Greek gods. They're bigger than you. They're greater than you could ever possibly be. You can't really touch them. But the movies never give them that grandeur. They never make you feel like these are truly these epic characters that they're supposed to be. These gods living among us. And that's how it should be. It's very disappointing, and Snyder can't tap into that. He can make a cool shot of the Flash or Batman that looks iconic, but he can't give them an iconic moment in the film that makes them stand out. And that's what you need. You need an iconic moment, and he's just not a storyteller. It's the most unfortunate thing in the world, though, because if Zack Snyder could tell a good story, goddamn. The setting needed to be developed and dynamic single one. It's too many atmospherically different locations for one movie. I agree. That's a problem I'm having with the visuals. It feels like there's too many different locations. See, with Wonder Woman, they started on the island and then they went to World War I. So you really only had two kind of visual styles, right? You had this beautiful tropical utopia, and then you had the harshness of World War I, which was supposed to reflect Diana's uncomfortability in that situation, her adjusting to it. You adjust with her in the war, and you grow with her. This movie, though, they're going to jump around to so many different places, you're not going to have the Aquaman movie established, right? An Aquaman movie's coming out after this, by James Wan. You're not going to have a Flash movie. That's coming out after this. You're not even going to have a Batman movie. You just have him in Batman v Superman. So you get the visuals from Batman v Superman, that Gotham. You're going to get Metropolis. You're going to get Almascara. You're going to get this new race alien things that make the world look like a video game. You're going to get Aquaman, probably Atlantis and some of that stuff. You're going to get... And I'm really excited about the Aquaman movie. I actually think Aquaman has a lot of potential to be great. But I'm just saying, like, you're going to jump around to these places, and that might work in a comic book because you're going to different panels. But the problem is with the director like Zack Snyder and how DC's doing this, I feel like it's going to jump around and feel messy and lack transitions and clearness with geography and where we are. Kind of like Batman v Superman did. Snyder didn't even do a lot of establishing shots. He just jumps in like he thinks he's Christopher Nolan. But the problem is he doesn't get the Christopher Nolan... even though people claim he doesn't do establishing shots, he just does them really quickly usually. Or he gives you something else to establish where you are if it isn't an establishing shot of the location. He'll jump into the location and give you a sense of somewhere where you are. He's not the best at geography, but you always, because from good film editing, right, and how he frames it, you at least know what's going on in the scene. Snyder movies since Sucker Punch, basically, jump the fuck around. Sucker Punch, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman. They jump around. None of the transitions flow. The tones don't match when he goes to one place or another. They feel like different locations. It feels like he's making multiple movies in one. It's felt that way 3 times now. So I'm really worried that Justice League's going to have that issue where you're going to go to one location, it's going to feel like this one kind of movie, and then it's not all going to mesh together as a whole. It's gonna lack cohesion. And I think maybe if you only picked a couple things, like X-Men Days of Future Past, for instance, you have the future world that looks a lot like the Terminator, and then you have the past, which looks like a 70s movie. Bryan Singer even kind of shoots it looking kind of 70s. So they go back and forth, and it works. You have this big-budget, blockbuster, big CGI movie, and then you have this old-school, more grounded-looking movie. And the two go back and forth, and it really works, because it's like, oh, this is the 70s, this is now. This is the 70s, this is now. But I don't know how many of those locations, how well they'll be able to pull that off. Oh, by the way, Dunkirk's opening very well, 51 million weekend. Girls Trip, 28 million. Valerian, 16 million. But we all knew that was going to bomb. There was no way that wasn't bombing. I thought there was some more Comic-Con news. Uh, Unless I missed something. Yeah, no, Sucker Punch did suck. It was definitely cool over substance. I completely agree with that assessment. No, he thought wouldn't it be cool to play Where's My Mind because that was in Fight Club with the Pixies, and I'll put it at the beginning, and then I'll play like Led Zeppelin and shit. Wouldn't it be cool if they fought a dragon? It's like, well, why don't you explain that she was like an artist, and that's why when she goes into this fantasy world, she sees things that relate to her real life. Like, oh, she draws a dragon, so she fights this dragon. Or she likes comic books or fantasy novels. She likes anime, so when she goes into this world and they fight samurai robots, that's because she's a fan of samurai robots. There's no context in Sucker Punch. He just shows you the cool scenes because he would think they're cool. Like, man, it'd be cool if they fought some like Nazi zombies and stuff. And it's like, yeah, it looks cool. It looks like Heavy Metal Magazine. Sure, you're playing music over it that I know, but it means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. It's just a music video. It's just a music video with nothing to it. And it's like, well, dude, a music video is not a fucking movie. Zack Snyder's like one of the greatest music video directors out there that shouldn't be making movies. He's like the antithesis of a David Fincher. Where a guy like started making these wonderful artistic... Because in a music video you can get away with that, just saying, hey, this will look cool. And then you watch a 3-minute video with a song or some shit and you're like, awesome. But in a movie you gotta tell a fucking story. And Schneider tries to tell a whole story up of, hey, it looks cool. No, Jesus Christ. So, Adam Wingard at Comic-Con, they asked him if he had a death note. This is the guy who directed The Guest, the new Blair Witch movie, You're Next. He's directing the Death Note adaptation for Netflix. They asked him if he had a death note, who would he kill, right? To include a death note if he owned one. And he said the President of the United States, so he's saying he would put Trump in a death note. It's like, dude, fuck you. Oh my god. It's like, really? I'm sure he thought that was so clever. No, it's like, dude, you know, people who are Trump voters like Death Note. People who are Trump supporters like to watch Death Note and might like your movies like The Guest or just like comic books and stuff. It's not like everyone who's into this shit's like, yeah, screw Donald Trump. Fuck him. You want to kill him. I love they saying you assume half the country supports the president. It's like, dude, polls don't mean shit. I'm so sick of the polls. The polls are the most funny thing in the world. They're always like, oh, Trump's like at the lowest rating ever. No one likes him. It's like, he still has a lot of support. Quit acting like 80% of the country hates Donald Trump. A brilliant takedown and a total justification for Donald Trump's re-election. Why not a third term as well? Get a job would see claim to be on that one too. Not really sure what they're talking about. God, it's just a bunch of people in the comments shitting on Donald Trump because that's what they gotta do. Have their little fun. But, oh, he's trying to say Donald Trump's not a supervillain because supervillains are smarter and have better plans. Yeah, but that's just so... I can't believe, like, he could have said so many things that would have been funny, and he went with the most obvious fucking thing to pander to a group of people to be like, ha ha ha, Donald Trump. Could you imagine if he just said that about Obama? Like, if he'd been at Comic-Con, they said if you could kill anyone with the Death Note, and he was like, the President of the United States, I want to kill Obama. People are like, holy shit. And the funny thing is, Matthew Vaughn, it was bad. This is how ballsy Matthew Vaughn is compared to these pussies. If you watch Kingsman, The Secret Service, he's clearly saying this guy's Obama. Now, it's not Obama, I know. But he sounds like Obama and he looks like Obama. He's part of this, like, globalist conspiracy to try and control the world. Like these liberals that are obsessed with making the world a better place. And they get to decide morally. Because they're the upper class and they're superior to the lower class. And then at the end, he blows up Obama's fucking head and all these world leaders. And I'm like, holy shit. That blew my fucking mind, the reaction in the theater. I mean, I haven't seen something like that since Team America. Because nobody had the balls to do that kind of stuff with Obama. He still doesn't even make it Obama. He shows the back of the head. But it's still like, oh my god, the fact that you're doing this social commentary in this movie about class and globalism and dangerous liberals and the irony and the hypocrisy of the way they talk. Sam Jackson's character is a perfect satirical look at a radical leftist or aggressive. How he doesn't like violence or killing people, but he thinks it's necessary to kill certain people to help the world and its population and the climate and stuff like. I mean, it's just perfect. And the Kingsmen are all like, hey, you know. And it's more about, the rich, privileged people fucking over the poor people. But I like that he doesn't make it like evil conservatives. Even in the new movie coming out, he has these like cowboy characters, the American characters, the statesmen that love America and Americana. It's like Matthew Vaughn fucking gets it. He knows how to make fun of everything and do commentary in a very clever way instead of just doing it like, fuck, like American Horror Story is gonna have a Donald Trump season. Um, I'm already hearing stories about writers are writing Donald Trump books right now, and there's that play with Donald Trump. And it's just like, we're getting to the point now. We're getting so burnt out on Donald Trump that you're not seeing a lot of people do something creative. Like, they're not thinking outside of the box. They're just sticking with, well, like, what's the popular thing right now? Oh, Donald Trump. Let me reference that. And, I don't know. It shows a lack of creativity. It definitely makes me worry. It makes me worry about a lot of these... as movies have been sucking lately, and it's kind of reflected in the way they make jokes. Yeah, I know. No, it's like they want the congratulatory, like, oh, you hate Donald Trump. You can stay here and work. We like you. You said something bad about Donald. It's like, who gives a fuck? Let's see why Frank Miller thinks superhero films are better than ever and why that's breaking news. I mean, I guess they're good. I don't know if they're better than ever. I definitely think the peak was like '08 when Iron Man and Dark Knight came out, or even when Batman Begins was coming out and like Spider-Man 2. Unless you think the MCU and everything right now is like the greatest thing to happen to movies. I actually think they've hurt. It's not Marvel's fault, but every studio trying to copy their formula has led to movies really losing distinctness and being standalone movies. Everyone's trying to set up a cinematic universe now. Frank Miller is at Comic-Con this week to promote DC. Okay, let's see. Let's get the interview. You have coming to Comic-Con forever. How much has it changed? Let's see. Okay. Well, obviously somebody was doing something wrong. It all got too sanitized. Put things in historical context. In the early 1950s, comic industry was traumatized by censorship movement that was headed by pop psychiatrist named Frederick Wertham. He made a name for himself saying comic books caused juvenile delinquency, which was the big scare of the time. There were pretty raunchy horror comics and stuff coming out back then, and comic books were selling beyond belief. Sales numbers were astronomical. He organized or inspired comic book burnings. It became very, very bad to sell comic books. The comic book publishers were terrified. They went after the biggest publisher there was, EC Comics, which did all the Tales from the Crypt and the horror comics at the time. They shut them down with something called the Comics Code, the strictest censorship code in history. And Frank Miller, too, man, it's got to be said, he hasn't written a good book or anything in like 10 years. It's funny, Dark Knight Returns, one of my favorite books of all time. Great, the narration. Batman Year One, just as good. Sin City, 300, I'm a big fan. A lot of his books, I've like a lot. Ronin. But man, Frank Miller, somewhere in the 90s on to the 2000s, goddamn. Like, Alan Moore still writes good stuff. It's not like his peak stuff, but it's still good. Frank Miller, though, holy god. It's like, talk about being a fucking hack. It's all just about titties and violence. And I mean, it's just, it's schlock. It's complete schlock. All-star Batman and Robin's just awful. I'm the goddamn Batman. But he really lost his mojo. Used to always, I mean, and God, he was the guy he did the fucking artwork for Daredevil, and then came in and started writing on Daredevil. And he really made that character what he was in a lot of ways, and gave him that, like, Batman-esque, because it's basically like he wanted to write the Batman he always wanted to write. I feel like that's what Daredevil is a lot. Sometimes somebody comes in and it's like, oh, I kind of want to write a Batman story. I'm going to apply some of it to this Daredevil. Although I could argue that Matt Murdock's more interesting than Bruce Wayne. I actually think Matt Murdock's a much more interesting character. Now, Batman and Daredevil, who's cooler, that's debatable. But Matt Murdock, I think, is far... especially with the blind thing. And he doesn't live in a mansion like Bruce Wayne. And he's a lot more humbled. And I don't know, it's nicer. It's like he still has money and stuff, and his parents still died, right? His dad's still dead. But he's as interesting of a character as Daredevil is. Where Batman's way more interesting than Bruce Wayne. Even the best stories about Bruce Wayne, he's still not, like, always the best character most of the time. But in Daredevil, Matt Murdock is, which is what Marvel does. Marvel makes the man under the mask just as important, where DC's all about the hero.